Okay, so what I'm going to present now in this session is what I've promised yesterday in my other sessions as a representative of the Education Committee. So as I've told you, we have some preliminary work done towards authoring a white paper on training and certification for computing in construction. So the authors here are actually the members of the Education Committee, and we sat down and we made this preliminary review, some results I'm going to present today. So starting, we know here, but it is also a fact from every source, that there's a growing digitalization in the industry across multiple areas, ranging from CAD and BIM, where there's a lot of focus in the previous years, to AI and Industry 4 approaches. So what this leads to is an exponential growth in the demand for trained and skilled personnel that could work in the AEC industry and academia. So starting even from the very early ages of computing as a research topic for engineers back to '87 with the first publication of Journal of Computing and Civil Engineering, and then with several critical points in time, we've come up to a point where there are several organizations, including this one, including EC3, that are actually working on how we should formulate education and research on computing and construction. So what we need to do, first of all, is to identify the area, explore the status and the demand for training and certification for computing and construction, especially European-wide. This is what EC3 is about. So with that motivation and research question, we first of all identify the background and context, and we come with a first statement that is that training and certification are actually parts of a single process. It's not two different things in practice, as the certification process always includes some kind of an education program that through the process leads to the certification. And on the other hand, all certificates, all educational processes are finalized, are ending with awarding some kind of certificate. So these two are interconnected and sometimes used, the words are used interchangeably, although it's not exactly the same, and this causes some misunderstandings and misconceptions. Another issue that has to do with misunderstandings and misconceptions is what we talk about when we speak about the term. We're going to use the term computing in construction, because there are a lot of things. Actually, computing in construction is an umbrella term that covers a very wide range of knowledge, skills and abilities across a range of topics. So the idea here for us was not to limit, not to restrict the possible interpretations at this stage, at least, both for computing in construction and differences between certification, education, and things like that. Leave it free, leave it open, and try to find out what the literature and colleagues say about that. So the research methodology was a simple one, looking towards acquiring a broad, comprehensive and holistic view and preliminary understanding of the status of training in the areas of computing and construction. We structured a methodology that combined literature review, a desktop review for market trends, and an empirical survey. So concerning the literature review, well, we did not go through a very broad, a very big number of papers. We have decided to review works that in the past have reviewed themselves the area. And so we limited our research on Elsevier's database or Scopus database, and then from there, with the specific keywords that are presented here, we came up with around 12 to 15 journal and conference papers that were mostly cited, and that, again, I repeat, were review papers on the issue that we are investigating. The second tool that we used was a desktop review for market trends. We wanted to leave the academic boundaries and get to the market and review there any patterns and market trends in training and certification for computing and construction. So that was made mostly through internet-based research. And the last part was an empirical survey that we structured that comprised 3 steps. The first one was the demographics of the survey, and then once we had all this material, we were asking the question whether or is there any certificate for computing in construction education offered in the country you live. Depending on the response, we were getting to the 2 other parts of the survey. Well, if the response was positive, which means that someone could be certified, then we were seeking information about the organization that provides the certification, the level of the certificate, and the duration of the certificate. How long is the certificate lasting? In the case that there was no response about known certification offered in the country of the respondent, then we were asking whether there were any ideas about who should be responsible for providing such a certificate, and what would be the potential uses and potential duration. And one more question, whether academics teach computing in construction should be certified for this job. So the results from each one of these 3 different tools, research tools, are shown from this point on. First of all, we know, and this was confirmed by the literature, that digital methods, technology, and tools are prevalent more and more in the industry, and by that, the conclusions that came with this result are that there are also other current societal needs like climate change and climate crisis or urbanization that, coupled with this digital methods and technologies prevalence, create new content for the engineering, education, and profession overall. So you have something new, and maybe the presentation that we had earlier with him suits very well this result. I mean, how we could align these ideas with remarks made from the literature so far. Now, the growing familiarization of construction management staff with the new roles, plus the transformation of traditional roles due to the introduction of IT and in construction, plus the implementation of new protocols. All these are really indicating a transformation of the profession, a new organizational plan that will gradually prevail. In a very few years, the whole profession of civil engineering, at least, or let's say a lot of professions in the AEC industry will be will require new things and will be done in a new way. Projects in the industry are increasingly taking place in distributed environments, often internationalized but also localized. So knowledge and information are shared and reproduced, and this means the distributed work. This renders the distributed work as an imperative in the new era. There are also conceptual knowledge of digital methods and technologies are considered as more important for the industry compared to the sole acquirement of application skills, or at least this is what the literature says. And this has a justification, if we come to think of it, because if you have the understanding and the knowledge of the methods instead just of using the software, then you are more responsive to emergence. You have built a background, you have developed the first competencies, so you can cope with any new things that happen during your career. And you are also developing proactively skills. Only if you have acquired the knowledge, it is possible to achieve the adaptability in an advancing professional environment. Accreditation bodies in the field are adjusting. They have to address requirements of new environment. They have to bring forward the need for training and education in computation in construction. And certifications in general are not yet a requirement for employability in the construction industry. They are not mandatory. They are desired. There is a trend, but it's still in its infancy, at least to what the literature findings show. For example, standardization is not concurrently advancing throughout the European Union, so it's difficult to have an open market where we could work outside our country of our nationality, but have a different kind of accreditation certifications mandatory for work in the industry. So these two go together. Getting to the results of the desktop review for market trends, there was an emphasis on the rapid growth in training providers in the last decade. There is a general trend and the dominance of BIM providers, of training programs providers in BIM, but there is also this rapid growth in training in other topics of computing in construction as well. There is a demand for acquisition of skill sets, which is sometimes seems to be more critical than the authenticity or the authority of the training provider. I mean, by that we have understood that there are so many people providing courses and certifications that at some point still the market has not made this distinction between good and bad providers. As long as you get the certification, there is still room for everyone there. This is expected to change, especially when quality control and standardization processes are established, and again in the near future. There is a growing demand for computing in construction training that extends beyond BIM. And let's now get to the results of the empirical survey. Okay, there is with regard to the ages, we had 45 valid responses from members of the EC3 community. We sent it to EC3 community and asked for our partners, our colleagues, to respond. So the average age was around 40 years old between the respondents, and they were mostly males. And this reflects current trends in construction industry and academia. We have to do that, but this is something about that, but this is something else. And there were all over the world, not just European Union. We had responses from the Americas and from Asia. Now, concerning to the professional background, the respondents were both working in the construction industry and the academia. And there were people who were working in both fields, so we took them twice in the sample. But that is why you see that academic organizations are far more compared to any other organization. But this is not just professors or just people coming from the academia. They do have an understanding of the open market as well. there is also the results for those who went to the certificate. The response they responded yes to the question: is there someone providing a certificate? So for them, it seems that the certificate is for professionals mainly, or it should be for professionals mainly, and then for graduate students. And those who could certify people for computing in construction should be predominantly academic organizations and then professional organizations. Also, there is no time for the validity of the certificate. Now, these results show that a certificate in computing in construction is required according to the respondents because it has there are several perceived benefits of the certificate, and the providers again in the case where someone should seek or would like to seek for a certificate are that they would go primarily to academic organizations and then to professional ones. This means that there is a strong preference for certification from established organizations with some authority, with some knowledge on the field compared to online training providers or proprietary software companies. This is interesting for us. Also, there is an understanding that the certificate in computing construction should not last for long because of the advances of the field. So you need to update it regularly, and it should also lead to. It should also be the case that the trainers should be certified, especially also in the academia, trainers in the academia. So, wrapping up a little bit, there is a growing need and demand for certification and training. All reviews have shown that, all research tools. So, the next step is to take this umbrella term, computing in construction, and clarify it. Not provide necessarily a new definition, but explain to ourselves and the people what is exactly meant by computing in construction. And from that, we can go to the second question, which is definition and determination of means and kinds and level of training certification required for various subsectors of the industry. Now, there are also complementary results from the reviews from the research tools. For example, the literature review shows that there is a decentralization that benefits of training and certification that benefits the construction sector. Market trends show that people are getting trained and certified through multiple channels, and the empirical survey says that quality assurance to training and certification is something that is required. So all of it leads to benefiting from a decentralized training and certification ecosystem with novel mechanisms of quality control and quality assurance. This is a result, so we should head towards that, and EC3 could play a role here. We need to adapt a trainer approach, so there are several modules that we have to work on. Again, EC3 and the Education Committee and other committees as well could do some work on the modules with specific target groups and mechanism steps towards certification. And of course, we have not conclusions in the strict manner. We're using them, but actually new research questions, new topics for discussion. How define the different areas and sub-areas of computing? We've discussed about that. How do we create mechanisms to meet demand-supply balance in the training and certification market? How do we assist, support academia and professional associations in taking the lead with regard to this certification process? And what can especially EC3 do? What the role of EC3 will be in creating an ecosystem of an effective training and certification environment. So, no one did stop me so far, so I had told you to do so. That's it. Again, I would like to welcome everyone else who's interested or tempted or, I don't know, curious to join this effort, because we'll do some very good things in the next year, and hopefully this time next year we'll know in a couple of minutes where it's going to be. We'll have to present much more on these topics. Thank you very much for being here and attending. Thank you.